Hey everyone, welcome back. And today we're going to talk about raspberries. Want to talk to you about raspberries today. I know many people, especially if you're a new gardener, want to grow raspberries. Supposedly it's an easy plan, but there is a lot of confusion on to what to do with it, different varieties. And today we'll be talking about June bearing variety. That's the variety that bears fruit once a year, not twice a year. So it bears fruit on last year's growth, and then the growth dies back and you have to cut them back and so on and so on. And that's what I want to talk to you about and show you how to figure out and what it exactly needs to be done. Because when I started just growing raspberries, there was some confusion on it, and it took me a while kind of just to figure it out. I guess I'm a visual person, so for all the visual people out here, hopefully this will be a bit helpful for you, and I will show you our this is just one of the areas where we grow raspberries, and we got 4 rows here. I have 3 rows that are pretty much tidied up and ready to go, and we have another row that I'm still need to kind of, you can see that it's a big mess through it, and it needs to be tidied up a little bit and fixed and tied up and so on. But the raspberries are, they are ready to bloom. As you can see here, the bloom is coming in. And today let's just talk a little bit what happens with the raspberry. So this is last year's cane that grew last year. This is a little bit better view of it. You can see that it's nice and brown, it's woody, it's almost like has a bark on it. This year, when you look right now, even before the fruit starts setting, there's this young shoot that's coming out of the ground. And all of these young shoots that are coming out, you can see some of them are bigger, some of them are smaller, and they're coming from the crown. This is the plant that will produce next year. So this will grow this year. It will become about this big. In the winter, everything will fall off. All the leaves, everything that you see on it, it'll fall off. And then there's just gonna be a stem. And then from these little nodes on it, they will produce the new growth like this. And this will produce, if I can only focus on it, there we go. And this will produce on it a new flower, which will then produce fruit. But what happens at the end of the year, this becomes a big mess, especially with more vigorous plants. These stems right here, they tend to get really tall, and they tend to fall down and start kind of crowding up on the area here on your walkways and so on. So what I do usually throughout the year, and especially earlier on, when this one here, let me just show you here, this example here, this is a pretty good size. I mean, this is the size of my finger right here. As it gets taller, once it gets to this rope here or the wire here, I will tie it to it and let it just sit there for the remaining of the year. This stem is, when it's green, it's really soft, it's really limber, you can move it around. But as they get brown and woody, they tend to break very easily. So if you let this plant grow like this, and it's gonna fall down, next year when you come in, or in the fall, and you want to tie it up to make it into a row, there's a good chance that it's going to snap. And I'll show you an example of that when that happens. So like this plant right here, I believe this is a different variety though, but this is an example of it. See, it just snapped right there when we were working with it. And it happens. Now there's another thing that we need to talk about, is amount of shoots or amount of canes that you want to leave on the plant. So in normal situations, you want to leave like this right here. So you have 1, kind of cane growing. You know, this is a different root bowl on it. You know, you got another one here. That's kind of what you want to do most cases. I actually don't really stick to that rule most of the time. Like you can see on this one, I have 1, 2, 3 growing right there. If you step back, you can see that this is probably good 6 feet to the top, and I actually cut it off at the top because it was growing even taller. So this is where we're at on the raspberries. This is kind of springtime right now. I recommend tying it up in the fall, but sometimes, like myself, you know, it gets cold and so on, and you can see how big these get. This is 8-9 feet, so I'm gonna cut this stuff off, like probably right there, and good 4 feet it'll just be thrown away because it'll just it's too big of a plant that we need to pay attention to is as they grow, to tie them up so they don't fall on the ground. Like some plants, you can probably see this one that I'm holding here, it's not tied up. They will fall to the ground and it's just hard to pick them, and it becomes a big mess throughout. But having these rows, I use just standard wire that we tied up between 2 posts, and we let the raspberries grow through it, and we tie them up to it, and it actually works pretty well. So this is a good system to do. You want to water your raspberries so they produce a good full fruit, especially when it's dry, and as well as feeding the soil. You know, all the plants, they need compost, and we usually just spread compost and wood chips. And then, as you probably saw right here in the walkway, is we put in we have some sawdust or chips from our woodworking shop, and we just spread it out kind of to kill the weeds and don't have that much weeds. You want to give your raspberries as much sun as possible. So if it's full sun area, that would be the best. Kind of keep the weeds out, and they will produce, I mean, years and years. This section here actually used to be our main raspberry section, but we've went away. We've actually created a new raspberry row, which I can show you in a second. Let's walk over there. All right, so our new raspberries are in the main garden where we have them growing, and I'll show you how they are doing here. This is where our main raspberries are right here. You can see this whole wall. This is basically everything is raspberries and raspberries. They get full sun out there, so it's really good. They get watered and compost spread more than on the other garden. So basically all of these raspberries, they were taken out of the first garden and then transplanted here. And with time is that some of them that were left there, they just kind of kept on growing and growing, and we've started reviving it, and now we have another 4 rows of raspberries. And then on the same area here, there was a lot of new shoots. So what we did is we took them across the garden and planted them against that fence. This was planted probably 2 years ago. We've harvested berries already from it last year, and as you can see, it's doing great as well. So the other thing is that they produce a ton of shoots. And if people think, oh, raspberries will not produce, or raspberries are not invasive or something, they aren't as bad as blackberry. But this is a shoot, and it's probably good 3 feet away from our main raspberries. This is a shoot that came somehow from all the way across from there, under the pathway, and right there. And if I look through the garden, I mean, look at this. We got raspberries there, raspberries there, raspberries there. And I can just go on and on and on about it. This is another raspberry plant. I mean, there's more than one, but same here. Came across from our main garden raspberry plants to here. Another one here. So we just pull these out and just kill them. I mean, we feed them to our rabbits. So that's the raspberry issue with growing them, is that you got to watch the shoots because they will go all over the place. Anyways, hopefully this helped you guys with the raspberry questions that some of you have, and you guys have more luck growing your raspberries, and you'll have a good harvest. I mean, we produce a ton of berries on these. We freeze them, we make jams with them. They produce and produce and produce. So water, fertilize them, feed them, weed them, tie them up, make sure they're neat, have air circulation in them, and you'll have a ton of berries. Good luck. Thanks for watching. Like our channel, subscribe, and we'll be back with some more info on what's going on in our garden.